Here.
Thank you. President Larson. Denise Mazzone.
Present.
Thank you. Philip McKenzie. Philip is arriving a few minutes late. He will be here. Secretary Simon.
Here.
Welcome. Kent Whitworth.
Present.
Thank you. Aaron Whitnable.
Present.
Thank you. Senator Drazkowski is out today. Representative Freiberg.
Present.
Thank you. Senator Kunish.
Present.
Thank you. And Representative Olson.
Present.
Thank you. Pass it on to Chair Fitch. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Iyer. I would like to adopt the agenda. Would someone like to move or adopt the agenda?
Second.
It was Denise? Thank you. Is there any discussion for today? All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved. Thank you. Welcome everyone to our first in-person meeting at the State Emblems Redesign Commission. It's great to have everyone together and continue this incredible work for the last months now. It's been incredible. We have been together now for a couple of months and now even through gotten to each other, to know each other. Let's take a quick moment to reintroduce ourselves since this is the first time we have met in person. If each of you have a quick introduction, just a quick minute. You can start from the right side. Thank you.
Shelley Bach. Hi, I'm Senator Mary Kunish. This is my third year in the Senate. I served 4 years in the Minnesota House, and really proud to have been able to carry this legislation to go through this really important process. So thank you all for participating.
Hello, everyone. I'm Representative Bjorn Olson. I started back in August with our first meeting, and I said that this was going to be a really difficult task and undertaking for myself personally. I have some inner heartfelt feelings regarding our original flag, and the idea that we're going to be changing it kind of made me sad. With that being said, we undertook what I thought to be a very serious task here of identifying a new flag for our state. And I was very disappointed last night and was unable to sleep thinking about some of the flags that have been submitted by this committee. There were two definites that appeared to be, in my opinion, a joke, and that is a serious thing for me. This is an important task that we're undertaking, and submitting jokes or submitting things that blatantly go against what the statute says, notably representation of a single community or individual may not be included, was blatantly disregarded. I hope that as we're moving forward and choosing our 5 submissions here, because there are some very good submissions, I hope that as we are going through that today, that we keep that in mind, that this is a serious undertaking, that the people of Minnesota are depending on us. And this is not a laughing matter. This is not a joke. This means a lot to a lot of people, myself included. Thank you. I hope we can really come up with a really decent product out of this.
Hello all, I'm Kim Jackson. I was appointed by the Council on Asian Pacific Minnesotans, and I am excited and thrilled and honored to be here with you all and the commission members. Thank you.
Yeah, Michael Harrelson, governor appointee. I'm excited to be here as well. Thanks.
Lauren Bennett McGinty. I am the executive director of Explore Minnesota and was the appointee for our office. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Dyer, and I work for the Minnesota Historical Society in Capital and Public Art, and I am here to provide administrative support for this commission. Thank you.
Louise Fitch, the Sheriff Commissioner, and I'm a creative director of a company called Uno Branding, a multicultural company since 1999, working here in the Twin Cities.
I'm David Kelleher, Minnesota Historical Society. Looking forward to today's conversation. And please let us know if you need anything.
I am Dr. Anita Gall. I am a history instructor at Minnesota West Community and Technical College in Worthington, Minnesota, which is in the southwest corner of the state. I am one of the governor's appointees to this commission, and I am honored to be part of this process.
Good afternoon. I'm Kent Whitworth. It's an honor to serve as the representative of the Minnesota Historical Society. My day job is to serve as the CEO of the Minnesota Historical Society. And I want to take this opportunity to publicly thank my colleagues who have done just an outstanding job of supporting this commission.
Hi, Mike Freiberg. I'm state representative. I represent all parts of Crystal, Golden Valley, Plymouth, and Robbinsdale. I was chief author of the bill to create this commission in the House, and I'm really proud of the work everybody here has done. We put a lot of time into this, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of this process.
My name is Dr. Kate Bean, and I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Museum of American Art. I also serve as adjunct faculty in American Indian Studies at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. And I was appointed by the Lieutenant Governor as a representative of the Capital Area Architectural and Planning Board. I'm excited to be here today. Pidamia.
Hi, I'm Steve Simon, Minnesota Secretary of State. It's an honor to be working with you. I, too, want to thank the Minnesota Historical Society for its really excellent and outstanding and thorough work from day one of this process. Interestingly, our office, we have a lot of responsibilities in the law, but one of them that not a lot of people know about is that we are the official keepers of the seal of the state of Minnesota. So I suspect that's why I'm on this commission. Thank you.
Hi, Denise Mazzone. I'm a real estate broker, and I am representing the Council of Minnesotans of African American Heritage, and I am excited to be here. And I understand what you're saying, sir, down in the red. I take this very serious. Compared to what we have right now, I take our job very, very serious.
My name is Aaron Whitnable. I represent the Ojibwe communities in Minnesota, the Red Lake Nation, and then the 6-member bands of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. I'm enrolled at Red Lake. I typically serve on other councils related to human services and healthcare. Formerly worked for the Minnesota legislature, the state house for health and human services, back during the Ventura and Valenti administrations. And then my background was supposed to be in political science and military science, but I've taught comprehensive health education at the White Earth Community and Technical College up in Monoman. And I'm also a public notary, so I have a keen interest in the state seal, and then also representing Ojibwe interests in the redesign of the flag or the seal as not to offend or favor others over one another. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a few housekeeping messages that I would like to go through. The first one, we'd like to thank the Minnesota Senate for letting us use this hearing room for the meeting today. Senate staff have been very helpful to getting set up this presentation that we have outside and here. Restrooms are out at the door and around the right, if I'm not mistaken. We got some water available. Hopefully everybody has that. And if you need a snack, we'll ask you to not have food on the table. We'd like to take a break or two during the afternoon and have a longer break later this afternoon. For audience members, we really appreciate you being here. We're not going to be taking public testimony today, and we will ask you for respectful as the commission does important work. For commission members, this is new for all of us. We have an outline of the process for today's agenda, but since we will work together to come into consensus, We can adjust as continue our work through the day. We should keep in mind that the legislation that created the commission with a few parameters in how we do our work. The design brief adopted by the commission that gave us the roadmap and how we do our work, the best practice that we have heard about throughout the testimony, and the great ideas that have come from thousands of Minnesotans. Quick overview. Some thoughts on the task before us. We very much appreciate the time, effort, and creativity that Minnesotans have put into the submitting their ideas and designs for the new state flag and seal. And many more Minnesotans have been talking about this exciting possibility of a new flag and seal. This is a statewide conversation. We are not all going to agree on everything, but we hope that Minnesotans feel that their ideas have contributed to the final product that we all create together. As a designer, I believe synthesizing elements from diverse graphic concepts and thoughtfully written rationales to craft our ultimate flag and seal design that better represents the state of Minnesota. This design aims to resonate with every Minnesotan aspiring to forge a symbol that fosters unity, inspiration, and community support for a new flags and seal. Above all, it serves as unifying force, enabling Minnesotans to collectively embrace and express the shared identity. In our current process, I prefer to emphasize that we're distilling a wealth of excellent ideas rather than merely selecting a winning flag or seal. We are in the process of crafting, not just choosing, the ultimate flag and seal. Before we dive into the work, I'm going to take a few minutes to hear from Mr. Lee Harold, that is here today present with us, who's been talking about flags for so many years, and we're very happy to have you here today.
Chair Fish and Commission members, I am extremely happy to be here. This has been practically a lifelong dream of mine to address the state flag, and I've talked about flags throughout the state, north, south, east, west, and the two things I generally over the period of talking, I learned that the two things I try and get across are flags are important because the average person actually doesn't think much about flags. Their flags are there. It's like electricity. You turn the switch, the flag is there, so you won't think about it. So I try and show that flags are important. And secondly, that design matters. And so I don't do PowerPoints. I used to do slides and things, but flags are visual symbols, and they work better if you actually have a flag. So I have some. And I generally show flags are important by stories. And this is one of my first stories. This is the flag of South Africa, the original flag. It's a flag with flags on. It represented the Dutch, the British. I'm making this story very short. When the government changed to majority government, there were thousands of designs. The Chief Herald of South Africa said this is too important. The government turned to him specifically, not a commission, and said, design a new flag. He designed a flag that looked like this because he realized there was so much animosity, so much hatred, so much violence that the people had to come together. And that's what his flag does. It has the British colors, red, white, and blue, and the Dutch colors, orange, white, and blue. This is chili red. It's a mixture of orange and red. The colors of the ANC, black, yellow, and green, and they're coming together at the end all together. and it's been successful. It's been wildly successful. It's a very popular flag. They use it for sports and on their clothing. It's an amazing accomplishment, actually, to be that successful. A good flag, that's Maryland. A good flag gets used a lot. Maryland. In 1957, here we are. 1957, that was when the original Minnesota flag changed. It was originally white. It had stars bursting out from the center, a red ribbon that flowed across the bottom, kind of with the wind. But it was unique in the country, perhaps in the world, because the back was blue. And so when it was flying, it was going like this. It was not a very practical flag. It was very heavy. And so in 1957, it was changed, and they took, 1957, all this and scrunched in a circle. And I was disappointed. And I thought, that will change. And in 1987, I realized, no, it did not change. So since then, I've been talking about the state flag and trying to get us to this point. Thank you, legislators, and thank you, commissioners, for bringing us to this point so we can get a flag we can really be proud of. Just talk a little bit about flag construction. I do have a handout, and it has commentary too. The commentary is personal. I'm not going to go through it. The commentary is personal. It's not authoritative, but stripe flags flow with the wind. They're usually fairly effective. Vertical stripes are kind of solid. They're blocks of color, and they kind of stop the wind, like strong shoulders, kind of. Then there's solid color flags. There's a lot of empty space, but they can be very effective too. Flags with designs on them, and quarters, and bicolors. They can all work well. And then there's different, in the flag industry, they use color charts like this. When I started in the flag industry, I'm a CPA. I sold my practice, and I went into flags. So when I started, these were standard colors, and if you wanted a flag, it was sewn, and it was made in these colors. Today, with computers, they can make any color. But the standard colors are still better because some flags are sewn still today. And they're often right side up. I have seen the flag of the state of Minnesota upside down in many places, including the state capitol. So that's something you can keep in mind too. Here the flag companies will get large lots of fabric, and they will use them and sew them together like this. They look pretty brilliant. And today they're made by computer, by acid dye printing, by computers, or they're made by screens. And screens affect the number of colors. So if you have 2 colors, you need 2 screens. If you have 3 colors, you need 3 screens. And when you count the colors, if you're sewing it, each color is a different lot of material. But if you're doing it on a computer, you're starting with white. So you're adding white plus a color plus a color. So the number of colors matters. And the number of colors can affect the cost a little bit too. Here's another one that's sewn. And the complexity affects the cost too, because if they are going to sew this flag together, there's some time involved. So it's going to take a little longer, it's going to take more material, and other flags take less material. So that affects the cost too, even if they're computer die printed now. They still factor that in when they're looking at prices. And just there's 2 city flags that are the most popular, most known around the world. This is Amsterdam, very popular flag, and then Chicago. I don't know how my time is doing. Probably pretty close. Okay. Well, I appreciate again the time to speak to you. And one more thing, I belong to NAVA, the North American Vexillological Association. They are ready to help in any capacity with answering questions and helping you with designs or modifications if you need any help. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harrell. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Yes?
Mr. Harrell, is there anything that the flags come differently for different purposes, and we saw that in some of the comments about ones that were displayed as colors that basically had the fringe for ceremonial purposes. And those ones are typically sewn, if I'm correct. And then the ones that we fly don't have the fringe, they're not ceremonial. They can come just as one piece of fabric. Is there any kind of tips or advice that you or NAVA would have on us selecting a flag that can meet all the different types that it needs to be ordered in? Whether it needs to be sewn, or if it can be one piece, or if it needs to be a ceremonial flag?
When they designed the Canadian flag, they realized it looks really good flying, but they also realized at the time that if it's inside a building and just hanging down, that it's going to be less effective. They went for flying, and they said the design is the most important part. The reception that the Canadians will give it is the most important part, and we can't cover everything. And we didn't want to modify a good design for what would probably be the less common use. So I'm not sure I can really answer that question with any authority, but if it's a good design, it will probably work no matter how you display it.
Thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
Mr. Harrell, thank you for your presentation. Do you have any tips for us from other recent state flag redesign changes, Utah, Mississippi? Were you involved with those processes at all? And yeah, any tips you may have coming out of those?
I was not involved with those, but other NAVA members were. In fact, they were fairly deeply involved in Utah in particular, and they did assistance. the only really advice I can give you as a commission is to really pay attention to the comments that you get from people, and when you get your sample flags, to really take them to people and get reactions. And I have a flag store, and when people come in, I can see if they're just buying a piece of bread off the shelf, or you can see in their eyes that this means something to them and that they're buying something special. And that's the best I could do for helping to. It has to be popular. So if everyone knew what could be popular, Target would be a lot richer. But that's the best way you can find what works.
Any other questions? One last one. The South Africa flag is considered one of the most beautiful flags in the world and most recognizable. That they break one of the rules of principles of flag design. That's more than 3 colors.
Yep.
In our case, in Minnesota, if we need to do more than 3 colors, 4 or 5, to communicate better what Minnesota stands for, would you recommend that?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Another flag that breaks the rules is Mexico.
That's right.
Very popular flag.
Thank you. Before we move on, I just want to say thank you very much for your time. Yes, and I know you left a lot of samples, so we will be able to touch them and talk about them later. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I would like to welcome Mr. McKenzie. Thank you for being here today. Yes. Oh, no problem. Let's talk a little bit about flag and seal design submissions, just a general overview. We would like to start the next phase of our work with a conversation. Our work is to narrow down the many great ideas that we have been submitted to us. Together as a group, we will come to consensus on what's important to Minnesotans and what represents Minnesota on a flag and on a seal. Consider, when you make your selection, which design elements have captured your imagination. What represents Minnesota to you? Let's go around the table, and we can spend up to 2 minutes each, if wanted, to discuss how you chose and what represents Minnesota based on you and what you did. Yes, and we would like to start first with the flag, and then when we're done with that, we'll jump into the seals. Would anybody would like to start? Don't be shy, come on. Just general terms. What do you saw that you liked in general? Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minnesota is known as the Star of the North, and so every one of those submissions that I looked at that had a representation of the star, very few Minnesotans would be able to look at that star and say that's not Minnesota. I think that a lot of people could. I've never seen a loon in southern Minnesota. I've never seen one. I've seen more in Wisconsin than I've seen in Minnesota, but what are we if we're not the North Star?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of felt that same way too. When you travel around and about and people know that you're from Minnesota, what are the first things that they kind of talk about? And I think that Star of the North is definitely one of them. But as I looked through there, I'm a very visual person, and so those that were simple in nature, as you know, following the flag etiquette, but also presented a bold statement just by looking at it. So the colors and the design were two things that drew me in almost immediately. I know we aren't as well known about the loon, but there were some with images of the loon that were quite striking, and I always thought if I looked at that from, a very distance, would I be able to recognize that and then connect that to Minnesota? And so the visual aspects of many of these was really important to me.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, I would have to agree with the Star of the North. Before we solicited people to submit designs, I really kind of put out that I'd like to see more of a representation of the actual star instead of a generic star. There's a lot of generic stars on flags. I know we had Dr. Good testify the other week about Texas, of course Puerto Rico, we have some other states, of course the United States flag, where we have all these generic stars. I did pick some designs that had generic stars on them, but because I like the other part of the design, the representation of, essentially, Minnesota's kind of lush with greenery. We have the waters. I think blue has always been there for a color. But with the hope that some of these would be switched out for more of a representation of the Star of the North instead of keeping a generic star on them. That's my only comment, and I did make that comment on some of the designs. I did pick a couple of the loon designs just because I wanted to fill my 25, because there were some that were, I thought, from a distance, like, this is really unique. This is really, it really stands out, whereas it wouldn't be confused for somebody else's. I think there's a few other states that have broken the rules on their designs, and it sticks out. And I thought there were a couple that did that, so I threw those in there. But I definitely looked more at the Star of the North and some of those designs, and some designs don't have it, but could easily have that design put on.
And Mr. Winnable, when you say generic star, you're referring to a 5-point star?
Correct. So Star of the North, usually Polaris itself, not the Rotunda 8-point star. I also like that. But the Polaris star is 4 points that are a little bit more in, and then 4 points that are larger. So north and south, east and west are large, just like a compass on a map uses the North Star symbol. And then the shorter points that represent the southeast, southwest, northeast, northwest.
Thank you very much.
And I also like white or silver for them. I don't like gold.
White or silver?
Yeah, I just think gold is very, there was a word for it, kind of like ostentatious, or it's very, it's just really embellishing a certain kind of importance that I don't think is needed.
Thank you. Secretary Simon? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. First, I thought there were so many good designs for both. And I found myself, especially when I was getting down to the last 25, having to make some tough decisions. Maybe everyone did. And one of the tough decisions I made were there were designs that I really liked, that I still really like. My eye is really drawn to them. They're compelling, they're interesting, they stand out. But in the end, I didn't pick them for either because I thought they just don't belong on a flag or a seal. They would be great on some other Minnesota initiative or something else representing Minnesota. So I personally shied away from ones that I thought didn't look like they fit on a flag and seal. And for me, that meant ones that were sort of looked like they could be corporate logos or things, as cool as they were and really interesting as they were. That's another thing. I didn't favor animals on the flags, but I did on the seals. That was another thing. I think only 3 states have animals on flags, and that was just my personal taste. And I think we were all looking for, I certainly was, something that's timeless. In 100 years, would this still look good? If it screams 2023, then we probably don't want to do it. And I don't know, that's in the eye of the beholder. We all have different tastes, but those are some of the things that I was thinking of.
Thank you. Dr. Bean?
Yeah, I was thinking in a similar nature in terms of there were the designs that I liked personally, but sometimes that wasn't necessarily, there were a lot of loons and stars. And I think that's also, regardless of my personal thoughts on that, that's also the public saying what they find valuable and interesting and reflective, and I think we need to take that into consideration. I really love the elements that highlighted the landscape and the rivers. Also, as a Dakota person, thinking about, we have a word called kepamani, which is about, as above, so below, and that reflection of the sky and the land. And that's part of where our name comes from, Minnesota, the land where the waters reflect the sky. And so there are some designs that beautifully capture that in terms of the sky and the land, and there are some that capture it more in a symbolic imagery through mirroring that seems really sort of balanced. And I think that there is a really great opportunity to really highlight who we are as Minnesotans as tied to our different diverse languages and diverse populations here in a way that is really beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Fitch. Dr. Bean touched on a theme that I wanted to talk about as well, and that is the use of reflection. I found that very, very meaningful. There were a few designs that took me to a place, not a specific place, but a place, frankly, that I have seen across Minnesota. And I think there's this push-pull between very simple, quickly recognizable design, and then just a little bit of nuance that kind of takes the design to the next level. That you see it immediately respond, but then you maybe circle back and it means even more. And I found myself leaning in kind of literally to those designs. And I'll be curious to know how the commission members evaluate that, literally on the initial reaction or that return engagement with the design. I think it's got to be a little bit of both.
Thank you. Yes, please.
I'm just proud of the process that's played out so far. I really appreciate the voice of Minnesotans coming in through the process, the submission process. I think in terms of this commission kind of developing that process on the front end, I'm just proud of that work and proud of the work of the people of Minnesota in putting their voices in. Stars, lakes, reflection, loon, northern lights. Some of those things are easier to put on a flag and some aren't. But I heard a voice of Minnesota through the submissions, and I'm excited to see the result flying in front of people's houses in the near future.
Thank you, Chair. So when I looked at it, certainly the first glance was what looks good and what feels good. But I think when I really dove into the information, I read the comments from the people who submitted them, as well as the comments from the Minnesotans who participated in the process. And as somebody who, it's my job to kind of sell Minnesota to the world and talk about how great we are and what makes us really special, I found the stories behind the flags to be probably the most compelling. So it might not necessarily have been the right colors or followed all the rules, but the ones that I landed on were ones that I felt told a really great story of Minnesota and who we were, and something we could be proud of to continue to kind of help us tell our story to everybody else. So I found that to be probably the most intriguing part of the whole thing.
Thank you. Representative Freiberg.
Thank you, Chair Fitch. So I just want to preface my comments by pointing out, just for those who haven't followed this process as closely, that I'm a non-voting member of the commission. So the choices, the designs I would have chosen may or may not be reflected in the list of designs that received votes. So I'll just mention what I think are some good criteria for us to keep in mind. Of course, like the flag principles we've discussed, some of them conflict with each other, so it's kind of can't really be avoided. But, I think a prime one that we should think about is simplicity. And we've heard, kids should be able to draw the flag, people should be able to draw it from memory. So I think that's a goal we want to keep in mind. I also think it should be distinctive, which could or may not conflict with being simple also. Part of me honestly almost thinks we shouldn't have a star there because so many other flags already have stars on them. I did like some of the designs that had repeated figures on them that weren't stars, and I also liked some of the designs where the shape of the flag itself evoked the shape of Minnesota, although Ohio's flag already does that to an extent. But that being said, I do think it makes sense for us to have one star on there since our state motto is L'Étoile du Nord, the Star of the North. I did like some of the loon designs. It is our state bird, but I hadn't really thought about Representative Olson's point that there aren't really as many loons in southern Minnesota, so they may not reflect the whole state very well, so I appreciate you making that point. The name of the state itself evokes water, so it makes sense, I think, for one of the colors, if not the only color on there, to be some shade of blue, I would say. So those are just sort of some things that I was thinking about in looking at these designs.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, so I talked to a bunch of different people, so all my selections were not just my own personal preference, of course. And so we looked at and talked about things that were inclusive for all, either it be land, sea, whatever, and just populations, because the demographics have changed since 1957. And that can be represented in color. And I do like the Star of the North. I am for that, that's for sure. But those are the things that we looked at. And then the public's comments were really good. And then the people that submitted the flag design, and we talked about this a lot, because they had their own reason why they, drew the flag the way they did. But then we interpreted it so much differently, and it worked. It could work for all, basically. So those were my design choices, and they were not made just by myself.
Thank you very much. Yes.
As I was looking, I tried to just look at all of them, and I'd go from the back to the front, so I wasn't too exhausted by all of the choices we were faced with. And it struck me, as it helped shape what my priorities would be, that when nature or natural resources outshone commerce, I was more drawn to them. So the striking colors, and you know what they were meant for, and the star, of course. And as I thought about why that was, it was sort of the timelessness of our location as opposed to our current demographics that you mentioned, or what we're doing now in this state. So that natural beauty or place more than our activities stuck out to me, and I thought that might be something that lasts a bit longer. And then I guess the other part was, and this was when I was getting from that broad first and second cut down to our final 25, was that it should not probably try to say too much. Over time we'll say, boy, that's a lot of stuff on here, and I found that kind of got me closer to the short list.
Thank you very much.
I was just showing that I made a technical error. I missed I missed the number. But in 1541, we were talking about stars that might be easy to draw. I think in 1541 there is, which is one of the ones that I selected, but I put in 541 instead, so I apologize for that. But if there were to be a Polaris type star, I think that one is pretty simple and easy to use. It's also a simple flag. It was a little confusing on the website because some people submitted, like full page, and at the top, the way that public submissions came in, some of them just didn't look right on the thumbnails once they were created. So this person has it flying on a flagpole as a demonstration, and then they actually have the artwork below. But it's an interesting one if you get a chance to look at it. I think it was the first meeting, and I think I talked about it in some other conversations, but the thought of, if we weren't here, if people weren't here, what would Minnesota look like? And that's usually what we try to sell people on about Minnesota, too. Besides Minnesota nice. But the natural beauty of the state and the things that are in abundance. So whether that be agriculture or conservation or tourism, those are things that are really represented well if you look at nature or the natural elements, I think.
Thank you. Vice Chair.
As I think the only member of the commission that's actually from southern Minnesota. Oh, you are too. Yes, you're right. Thank you for bringing that up, Representative Olson, and for reiterating that, Representative Freiberg. A number of people from down in southwest Minnesota, when they looked at the flag designs, said, while loons may be beautiful and lady slippers may be beautiful and Norway pines might be beautiful and they may be our state symbols, they don't represent us down here. We don't have any of those things on the prairies of southwest Minnesota or southern Minnesota. And so they urged me to bring forward to the commission the fact that whatever we do choose should be representative of all parts of the state, and perhaps a loon or a lady slipper or pine trees might not be fully representative. And so that's something I do want the commission to recognize, is that the people of rural Minnesota, the southern part, might favor a different design other than loons. Not that we don't like loons, and when we come up north to the lake and hear the loon cry, it's beautiful. But that is something to bring into consideration.
Any other points? Yes, go ahead.
Just to that point, and Representative Olson, sorry. Some of the submissions that came in, and they came in from the public, and then we made a decision to display all of the ones that were entered, even though they didn't meet the criteria. And I think there is a little bit of, I didn't like that either. Some of the feedback that we got from people, and especially in the media, certain parts of the media, not Minnesota media, but states surrounding us and national coverage used a lot of that to lampoon us, and I don't think it didn't put us in a good light to be a joke. But when we come to symbols of the state, I think if we do use ones, if we're not going to use representations through colors, that if we choose to use a symbol, we have to keep in mind that we have to use an official symbol of the state. So there's some other birds in some of the other ones. There's, of course, the star, but in the seals, there's characters that people put in, and it's like, you can't put in caricatures of people. That, you just can't do that. But that's something just to keep in mind when we think about switching things around. If we want to put a symbol in somewhere, is that an official state symbol?
Excellent. Great points. Any other ones? Yes, go ahead.
I just want to say I really appreciated all the submissions by children. There were some really beautiful ones, and thanks in part to our great vice chair here for some of the work that she did in reaching out with that curriculum that was created. I know my kids really appreciated that and helped me with some of the choices. And initially they wanted all the kids' drawings, but we had some great conversations. And, I think that while not all of them necessarily follow the criteria, I think it's important to think of certain elements that could be incorporated. so that we're also remembering all the young people of our state. And I just want to share too that I had a conversation with my children, 2 young Dakota children, about how good it would feel to have a flag that we would feel proud to have in front of our house. And that's exciting.
Thank you. Any other? On specifically the flag. Spend a little bit more time now on the seal, because it's obviously it has different necessities and it's not the same as the flag. Does anybody want to jump into? Yes, go ahead.
So when I submitted comments, I put in edits for the seal, just technical edits, things that need to be done. And then a lot of them came with artwork, which a lot of the artwork was great, but that artwork should be confined to what's called the blazon, or the field, the center image icon. And then we need the label, which is the annulus, and it needs to state specifically that it's the Great Seal of the state of Minnesota. And whether you put 1858 in with that is date of statehood is, I think, would be appropriate. Some of the room gets eaten up if you put in the motto, but if you put the motto in on the icon, there's ways of doing that. We had some really good ones. We also have some good ones that don't have an annulus, but could have one put on from another design. I thought that was really interesting. I thought we had some pretty good designs, but that's one technical edit that I just want to bring up, is that the annulus needs to be separate from the art. It needs to be around labeled, defined by 2 borders, and then it needs to state the Great Seal of the state of Minnesota. And then I guess it would be up to the commission. I mean, it still is up to the commission, but it's up for us to decide whether we put the 1858 or if we put the motto on the annulus or not. But that's just one thing that I do want to bring up.
Thank you. I know it's a lot easier, I believe, to design a flag with limitations of computer and whatnot. A seal is a lot harder. You're dealing now with typography, letter spacing, borders, and borders that really mean something. And so I made a lot of notations like, this is good, but it needs this, this, and this. And so there was a lot of that, I think, all of us. And hopefully today we can, put all that, our minds together and choose 5 that really, we might have to talk to the designer. And if they need help, hire a designer to complete the work, to make it look like a real seal. So great comments. Yes, Secretary.
To your point, Mr. Chair, that in a way made all this harder, both for flags and seals. The idea that none of these are take 'em or leave 'em designs that we had said from the beginning. I think we said in the submission materials to all those submitting designs, just understand that these could be changed, they could be edited, they could be tweaked. And so in my mind, I found myself making some selections with sort of the asterisk in the back of my mind saying, okay, yeah, I like this one, but the blue's too dark. Or I like this one, but I would put the star somewhere else. Something like that. But the other thing that surprised me is at the outset of this process, my thinking was that the flag would be the easier of the 2 tasks. But when you look at the surprising consensus, it's at least so far, and that might totally change over the course of today and other days, we seem overall to have more consensus on the seals than we do on the flags. So maybe that'll be flipped on its head. I don't know.
Interesting. Thank you. Dr. Bing.
I had a hard time picking seals, and had a hard time picking 25. I actually couldn't pick 25 because, and I was struggling to figure out why. There's a lot of beautiful designs there, and part of it had to do with the inclusion of the motto in French, and the fact that anytime we use the word Minnesota within the English context, we're already being bilingual because it's a Dakota word. And choosing which languages we use, I think, is really important to be inclusive of people throughout the state. And I understand that's written into statute, but I also was wondering, you know, well, is language and should words be a part of the seal then? And if so, how do we spell them? Do we use the Dakota spelling of Minnesota? How do we reflect that in a way that is more inclusive? And I also, you know, I really love the seals that included the 11, you know, some nod to the 11 tribes. And I say that as a tribal member of a tribe outside of the state who comes from the people who were removed. I still think it's important to respect tribal sovereignty within the state and the 11 tribes that are within the state of Minnesota. And I really appreciated those who gave a nod to that. I'll also say that the seals that included 1858, I had a very hard time picking any seal that included that year for statehood, because for us as Dakota people, 1858 is tied to land cession treaties. And it's a hurtful date and a difficult time in history. And I think we you know, there are different, if we're truly going to be talking about symbolism that is inclusive, we need to really think about how the symbolism of that date impacts other people in Minnesota as well.
Thank you. Yes, please.
I agree with Dr. Bean. It was really hard with the seals. Even with that, the French, I believe it is the French word or words, I don't feel that that's really who Minnesota is. And I know you're not supposed to give cadence to one single group or another, but you know, the original inhabitants of this land were Dakota. Our creation story has us coming from this land. And to this day, we are still invisible in our own homelands. Everyone else has some recognition of their people in some way, shape, or form. Even other Dakota or even other tribes in the state have recognition, but not the Dakota. We're always forgotten. And so I do think in some way, shape, or form that needs to be commemorated in that. I think it's a little different because tribes are different. They have a different status than any other group of people in the country. And I think it's important to make knowledge of that. So yeah, I, like Dr. Bean, was not able to pick 25 seals. And even the ones I picked, I'm not sure I truly liked, but I did the best I could. So, Vidamaya, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
When I was looking at seals, I thought one of the important things is not to have a seal that looks like a logo. I thought Dr. Good's advice that this is supposed to look timeless was helpful. And while I appreciated some submitters showed me how it would look on a hat and how it would look on a t-shirt, I did feel that was a little logo-y instead of official state seal. I also wondered with the words of, if we put the motto on, does it have to be rendered in French? And I did ask David and the Historical Society about this. And apparently going back to 1861, the state statute establishes our motto as L'Étoile du Nord. So does that mean...
Well, hi there, everyone. I'm Tim Blotz in the Fox 9 studios. You have been watching our live coverage of the selection process.
Are we able to render it in a different language? I don't know.
Yes, Secretary Simon, go ahead. No.
I was only speculating. I was just saying, I don't think we're bound by that. I mean,
Okay.
we can put whatever we want on the seal.
Okay, I wasn't sure that if we chose to put our motto on, are we bound by any statute that says we have to do it in French?
Well, we could put, hypothetically, we could put Star of the North on there, and someone could say, well, by statute, what you put on there isn't the state motto, but it is what we put on there.
Okay, okay.
Just a little.
Yeah, that's something that I asked a few friends in the legal field for opinions on, and they came back with the same, that if the definition is the same, you're not changing it. You're just putting it in different language, a different language written it would not be. To the statute about favoring one person over another, when we talk about acknowledging the Dakota, that would be a historical reference, not a reference of other peoples over another. The star symbolism, I do from the Ojibwe communities, and it's really tough to sometimes represent Red Lake and the Minnesota Chippewa tribe, the 6-member bands, because we aren't the same. Red Lake is not a public law tribe. It is not a co-sovereign or equal sovereign with the state. It's different sovereignty, but they would just assume not to be represented. There's another issue with the 11 stars as well, because there are 12 tribes in Minnesota. Only 11 have reservations, but there is a 12th tribe, the Minnewakan, and they still do things. They're still organized. They're still on government rolls, even though they're not federally recognized. And they still do things and take care of their people and do things for other tribes. So to do some sort of symbolism like that, where it would only be 11, I don't think would be fair to them. But when it comes to the seal, the other concern too is that for the Ojibwe community is that's an official government emblem of authority and sovereignty. They don't want to be intermixed. They have their own, we have our own sovereignty separate from the state. So we don't want a commingling of that on the state seal.
Thank you. Representative Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate what Aaron had to say. I think we need to do the very best we can to not give a nod to any person whatsoever. My favorite, here's an example, my favorite flag was the one that had, it was a rendition of the North Star with the Nordic cross. And I'm sure that that doesn't surprise any of you, that Bjorn Olsen must in fact be Scandinavian. And if you were going to give a nod to a people group in the state of Minnesota, you could make a really great nod to a quarter of the population of the state who happens to be of Scandinavian heritage. And I was looking at some stats, and Scandinavians outside of Scandinavia, Minnesota is like the largest population of Scandinavians. So if we're going to give a nod, I wish we would have given a nod to that, but we can't. And so that's where like we really need to take the statute where it says no representation of a single community or a single person can be rendered in this. I was actually having a conversation this morning. I said, what happens if this commission goes against the statute and someone sues? Like, what happens? Do we go back to the drawing board? Do we take the original flag? Who knows? And there are some renditions in here that do in fact give nods to particular people, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether it's, you can say it's historical or it's not historical. We need to just stay away from it entirely, because I would love the Nordic Cross to be, you know, part of Minnesota because it's a part of me, it's a part of my heritage, but it's not a part of everyone's heritage here. And if that's the case, we need something that we can agree on. North Stars, balloons, trees, you know, whether it's in French or not in French. I think our motto is in French because they chose it to be in French, but that's entirely a different conversation. So I appreciate what Aaron had to say about being left off, but also I think every person group should be left off, to include Bjorn Olsen and his Scandinavian heritage and his 25% of the state of Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Fiber, sorry.
Sure, I was just asking to be recognized on the point about the motto. I don't think there's a requirement that we include the motto on the seal necessarily at all. So, you know, it doesn't, you know, it could be in a language besides French, but it could also just not be there. You know, I'm just looking at the one seal design that got the most votes from the voting commission members right now, and it does have the motto, it does have the year on it, but as Secretary Simon said, we do have the ability to vary from these designs, so we could just choose to leave off the motto if the majority of the commission feels that it's problematic. I noticed that design does in fact have the star itself on it also, which is, kind of a nod to the motto without choosing a language. So I think certainly having a pictorial representation of the star, North Star on there without necessarily the words, whatever language they're in, would be a logical way to go.
Thank you.
Hi, so with my spreadsheet that I sent over with my 25 picks, I did make different notes of, you know, change the words, you know, the verbiage behind, you know, the French, because me, myself personally, I never even gave it a thought. Like, what does it mean and why is it here? You know, because I didn't know that we were known to be French in Minnesota. So it, and when I was talking with all, you know, everyone that I was talking to in my community, they're like, oh, French, why, you know, why are they using French? Very, very interesting. So in my selections, once again, I did change a lot of the, you'll see I just made a bunch of different little notes that, well, from, you know, talking to people as well, these are the things that came out. And a lot of that was change, you know, the verbiage.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Riddle.
Yeah, I was just going to, you know, the motto, when we think about it in French, we had Dr. Good, of course, who is French-Canadian, of course, has a preference for French and keeping it French. But, you know, most mottos on crests or seals are in Latin. They don't need to be. You know, we can admit it, it doesn't need to be on there, but, you know, to change it, I think one thing we remember, the way that it ended up on there in the first place was completely just by Governor Sibley doing it all on his own without, and then the legislature had to pass legislation years after the fact because he's the one who just decided what it would be. So it was the legislation was passed years after it was just decided by one man himself.
Thank you. Yes.
I also am thinking about this seal and how it plays into legislators' lives here at the state legislature. We usually have this embossed on our stationery. We have it embossed on our business cards. We wear pins to represent that. Sometimes you go to conventions and you trade, you know, pins and that sort of thing. And when I look at some of the seals, I think of, you know, what will be, again, visually most notable and significant to be on all these different letterheads, you know, up on the walls behind us and those sort of things. And again, I think simplicity is important, and less complex, you know, less, not having a whole lot of things on that seal. I look at the one that did receive the most votes, and it's lovely in that kind of gold and blue picture that they have there. It's quite impressive. But I think when we do choose a final seal, that we make sure that we kind of adhere to that simplicity. And again, when you're creating these or producing these, you know, whoever is going to be the vendor, just how complex and how crisp will those lines be at the end of the day when they print it out or stamp it out or try to put it on a flag or some kind of material. I think those are just some really important things to think about as well.
I think those are great points. I know that as a graphic designer, and we haven't talked about this, we talked a little bit more from the flag perspective, that we gotta judge it from far away and then reduce it to half an inch and judge it that way. But we've never talked, and you mentioned the pin as an example. That's what, half an inch or less, right? How close the person needs to get to you to say, oh, that's Minnesota, It's kind of embarrassing. So yes, I think it's important to simplicity, right, to a point. But then there's versions that designers can do for when you reduce things and you have different weights and different things. You prepare the art in different ways for the purpose of something that is that size. So it's a balance because you don't want to start simple and it looks super simple or super complex. And we know what complex is going to look when you reduce it. It's going to be nothing. It's just, you can't tell what it is. And if we start very simple, we must miss opportunities for having other symbolism. So it's a balance, and I'm sure we'll get there. But thank you for your points. This is great. Great conversations. If there's no other questions. Sorry. Yeah, anybody else who hasn't spoken that would like to? This is it? Yes. You haven't? Kidding, I'm kidding. Yeah. No, come on. Go ahead. Yes, and you're going to take a 5-minute break? Yeah, sounds good. we want to really vote, or we're happy with what we all selected, because we already in a way selected a few, right? And so it's not really a vote, it's a direction of where it will take us for the next final 5. Look at it like that. Okay? Yes, go ahead.
Would we want to set a minimum threshold of the ones that we've voted on? Like, the minimum votes for flag would be 3 and above, and we can consider those ones?
So, yes, it would be nicer if we go out there so we can see it, but I like what you're saying. So, yes, I think this discussion, we can have it quickly and then come back here. So, I don't have the numbers on top of my head, but a lot of people choose one particular flag. There were not a lot, 5 votes, for example, right, on one particular one. Then the second one, I think there's 3, or I don't know how many, they got 4 votes.
4.
And then there's a lot of 3s.
Yeah.
Right, and there's a few 2s, and then obviously there's a lot of 1s, right? Going back to what you're saying,
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth to go to the 1s, other than someone want to say, wait a minute, that one to us and say, I think I like this and this and this, and hopefully we change our mind for any particular reason, or they like an element or a color from the one they voted that is only 1. But I think we can start with the ones that got the highest direction from us. And if needed, I think we're going to need to vote on the 3s and the 4s if we decide to, and then flip them and look which ones went up.
Okay.
And hopefully we can get 5, have a conversation, but it will be great to bring at least 5 into the conversation here for the flags and for the seals. Is that making sense? And if not, it will make more sense when yeah, but no, go ahead, Secretary of State.
So the only possibles, we're not reopening up all 2,000, right? This is just of the ones that got.
That's
at least one
gone.
vote. Okay.
And that's the option that we had, of bringing up to 25. And that's what it's out there. It represents what each of us had the opportunity to bring, right? But a lot of you chose similar ones than other people. And I think it will be interesting to start there. Why so many people choose these particular ones as a starting point? If we're not happy there and we don't see that 5 can come out of there, then yes, we can use our votes and go around it, or vote it specifically to those ones that got the 3 votes or 4 votes. Is it making sense?
Yeah.
Yes, and I'll explain it again. Yes, sorry.
I just had a question. Are the numbers out on those photos as well, or those
Yes.
printed out?
What's outside has numbers.
Okay, good.
And they correspond to what you voted.
Perfect, thank you.
So, like me, I very specifically put it in a PowerPoint with the number, the design, and the comments, so I don't forget when I go out there. And I'll bring this. So, yeah, if we can go out there and then. Oh, yes, take the stickers. And notepad, and what else? That's it? Yeah, the creative uses. Commissioners?
I'm on the commission, so.
Mr. Olson. More versus having the signs all over the place. Of the 25, up to the 25 that we decided to choose, all of us, this got 5 of our votes or directions, right? This got 4. 4 of us in the commission choose this. 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3. It's got 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. It's got 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. All these up here got 2. Here. From here on, 1 vote only. So we have 2 ways of doing this, right? If this methodology helps you focus on these now, we can talk about these. If you decide that yours that's only have 1 vote was very important, more than any of this, we can bring them over here. We can vote for the ones that are 3 and 4 years to move them up to 5. We can have a discussion about this one in particular. It seems like 5 people like them. And other people, we already started to have discussions about what this represents and so on. So it's open to any way you guys want to do it. Yes. I think we could. Let's do it now, but we're going to have to bring it in so it was recorded right now, having a big conversation by night. We might have to repeat it.
I don't want to do it.
No. Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Yes.
I chose this in particular around that combo here. I voted for that on the seal, but not the flag, only because my worry was that at a distance, it's hard to find but I was just worried that this was something that it wouldn't be as recognized. But I really like it.
Any other comments? Yes.
So, this particular one was one of the ones that we chose. Now, changing some of the stars or adding some stars or whatever, but that was one, and reason being is because it just looked like it was more inclusive, represent humans, the land, water,
So, I mean, we've all got 6 votes. We already voted. They're the top ones. We can go back and vote them any way you guys want to, and then turn them around and have a discussion on those particular ones. Since when we voted for some of these, we didn't have the conversation that we had today. That I think, for me, it was very knowledgeable. A lot of things that were said, and specifically on the seal. So, if you want to spend some time just voting, there's, again, it will be the orange, fluorescent orange only, these ones. Right. You have 6, and you can only vote on 1. So don't put your 6 on this. Not that you would. Yeah. Specifically you. And then if we can, if you don't mind, if you can put the vote just in the back.
Oh, sure. So we're not driven by.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else, Vice Chair? What do you think?
Let's do it.
Let's do it? Yes, go ahead.
Were we going to talk about possible modifications once we get back?
Yes, I think we can. Yeah, let's not get so picky as this is 5 or 6. If you like it the way it is, knowing that you can change it, go for it. Right? If there's something here that doesn't, and then let's see. because we can spend hours or days talking about every point of view. I think there's a lot of them that already seem to be universal, from a design point of view. They don't touch these other things that we want to do. Does that work? Yes.
Just one, the non-voting members, starting one, would it be okay for them to ask us questions about what we choose, what we were selecting, kind of usually what we're doing?
And if you want to, so we don't focus just on the flags, we can do it on the seals too. If you want to move to the seals very quickly, that way we can be moving on both sides. And we did the same thing with the seals. I can show you which one got everything, got 10 points. I think we all know which one it is. You want to?
And then we can all peruse all of them.
Please, yes, yes. Because it's not just here. I want to make sure that you guys look at everything and say, well, I really like this, and I think we can bring this forward. But if you only get one vote, then right? You're going to pick the ones that have more votes. Is it fair?
Everyone wants to pick a winner. I want to pick a loser.
Well, there's already. We already picked some winners here.
It's a lot of people, right?
But yeah, but now we're in the presence of everyone. So let's move over here just very quickly. Same here. We're trying to make sure that we can help you out, understand which one got. This got 10 votes out of 13 commissioners. This is in color, and I think we reacted to the mock-up they did in bronze. It was very, very beautiful. This got, I believe, 5. 5, 5, 5, 5. 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3. You see the triangle? 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and then 2. Start from here to here. Got 2. From now on, the rest and in the back only got 1 vote. If that helps you. So, yes, I mentioned it. Yeah. So just to remind ourselves, go around them. There's only 6, and the orange is for the. Yeah. Do you think I need it? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, perfect. So there's 6 orange dots. That's going to be for the flags, and just a reminder, put it on the back, right? And then the green ones are going to be for the seal, and they're the same. There's 6. And then we'll turn them around, and we could have another conversation. And we can bring that conversation probably inside with the ones that we show. So again, people already voted for some of these, and we already know that we can add different frames, we can change the color, we can do all these things. Imagine all of them in black and white if you want to right now. Don't even think about color. And then same with the typography, the font, uppercase, lowercase, serif, sans serif, all that can be changed. And what we're looking for is meaning, right, and representation of the state of Minnesota. So let's go ahead. And if the media and the audience can give a little bit of breathing room. Thank you. Sorry.
Please, we just put them on the back. Okay.
Remember to put it on the back.
This one is pretty cool.
Look at the top, ag producing.
Oh, here, hon. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh.
You should be able to plug it in here.
Boom. Boom. Thank you so much. Am I telling her shot right now?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. We started with carrying stickers, so I started shooting.
Cool.
But feel free to...
Yeah, I did that already. Breaking my own rules.
Because I keep writing things numbers down and then crossing them out and writing different numbers and crossing them out and writing different numbers. And
I don't get to pick.
Yes.
I like things that are the same.
This is the
I know, I But that's the way it would be, though.
Yeah.
That's the way it would be. If you're in your way, tell me to move or push me out.
Yeah.
But like with the water, that's what.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I would change the stars.
Nats have been playing Grand Ole Flag.
Yeah, because I think they were. And that's where I put on mine, there was like, there was one that had two numbers, same, so I just put. Yeah, I did that. Yeah. I don't even know if I put my thing on top of it.
We can have a leaderboard and we can have everything else. I have the boards right here. Unless we're here, I should check out. Right. And then once everybody's done, then we can check to see what we're doing. If I get a tattoo, but should I shake it only has to do with you? Look at you, speedster.
Yeah, I know, right?
After the recess.
over there.
Work on the wild side?
Well, I would say that. Brian knew it. It was a good set.
Answer, you're all done?
Oh, yeah.
You're done. Okay.
Okay, I'm
You're all done. Okay.
With restraint.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
I know, well, I had to go see, and if I still liked it, I was
Friday night at the Dakota.
We're gonna just pull the ones that have dots, and then we're gonna bring those in the room, and everybody else will back in. We'll take a little pause. We're not gonna start. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Good idea. If we need to move them, we can.
Sooner or later, they want to see. Yeah. Let's start with that. If you want to, you can stay for a few seconds and I'll give you what happens here with the results now. And then we can get all closer because I'm sure you're going to want to. And hopefully we can start talking about them and again, choosing 5 for each. So of all the directions that you did with the stickers just a few minutes ago, these 2 flags got 6 each. So almost half or more than half, depending how many people voted. These are the top favorites. The next one's got 4 directions. Each of these got 4. And these 3 in this particular row got 3. And then these got all of them 2. And we have, correct me if I'm wrong, 18 flags? 18 that got only 1. And I decided not to put it up, and we can all agree if you want to. They're still here, but I think 1 vote is like they're here if anybody wants to look at them. And then for the seals, this standout got 8, 7, 6, 2 got 5, and then it went down to 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, and 2. And we didn't count them, it's okay. It feels like 18 too, based on weight. There's a bunch of ones, they're all here. We can go through them. If anybody say, oh, there's one that I like and we use this border here, whatever. So it's open to conversation. Oh, they're up there too. Thank you. Should I move the boards here? You can see them from here and talk one by one. You guys want to move? Yes, let's do that. Olivia, can we start with the top 6, the ones that got 6? Thank you. Yes. Does anybody want to make comments on this particular one? Yes, go ahead.
So I just, as we're talking about these, maybe remind ourselves that the primary focus of a flag is to be on a pole with the wind blowing, with the wind not blowing. This already looks like the wind's blowing on the flag. So maybe that's good. Maybe that's not so good. But then I think the first 2 will be very interesting to see on a flagpole blowing in the wind. I think that'd be a very interesting scenario to see. And I don't know what I think about those 2 top vote getters blowing in the wind or sitting stagnant without the wind blowing.
The other thing too, and I'm not an expert, it's probably somebody can help me. Do the Minnesota flag gets folded? Can we fold it like in a triangle? Is that?
Yes.
Does anybody know this?
Yes.
Thank you. So that's another consideration, folding. What happens when you fold it, and there's ways of folding so you can see certain graphics. So that's another thing. And I doubt we're going to be able to resolve that today. But I think on the next 5, we're printing those and we're going to be able to play with all that. We can bring, air and everything to adjust them. But just in general, as a concept, I know 6 people voted for this. It would be interesting to hear why. And should it be one of the contester of the top 5?
Earlier today, talking about the one that is symbolizing mirroring the water, the 8-pointed star would probably be a little bit more prominent if it was tilted the right direction, because it's tilted to the side, so people don't recognize it. Might not be able to recognize it. So when you look at the bottom of the rotunda and it's an 8-pointed star, you can recognize that star.
I'm sorry, are you talking about the second flag?
The one that's the second one on the right.
Yes.
I mean, are we going to talk about potential changes to these?
Yes.
Now? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we can go detail on each of them. The idea here is that, do we all feel that tonight we can, out of these that we have, if we can come up with 5 of them, what changes and edits and whatnot, do we all feel comfortable what we're seeing? At least with 6, 4, 3, and including 2. And if anybody wants to look their number ones that they did, and if they have a good argument and they want to talk about them, more than welcome to go through the number ones. This is just to make our life a lot easier and start editing and stay more focused. I definitely see a trend. Almost all of them have a star. Well, I think all of them have a star. There's no use of red anymore. There was some red, there was some black.
I would.
Yes.
But I forgot what I was going to say almost. Oh yeah, you had asked folks that I did not vote for this one. That we see before us on the screens and the top left on the board. And you had asked for folks perhaps that voted for that, if they could explain why, because I'm not getting this one and I would love to hear some support for it.
Anybody wants to talk about F944? Yes, Dr. Bean.
This is one of the ones that I picked as one of the top ones that I liked. And it's because I can see the riverways. And I think tying in the river is really something that is really valuable here. It also has a symmetry in it. It has that mirroring image in terms of it feels balanced. The star, I think we can have a conversation of how many points and all of that. But for me too, in terms of the rivers, for us as Dakota people, the Bedote is one of our sites of creation. And this symbolizes that for me. And I don't know whether that was intentional. I didn't pull up the submission with the comments that described it. But for me, that's how I read it, as the two rivers coming together, which I find really beautiful. There are Budotes all over the world and all over Minnesota, but there is a specific one that is also tied to our creation, and it reads that to me. And I think that there's a lot of historical relevance with the riverways. We see the rivers as the veins of Mother Earth, and there's some real beauty there.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say it better than that, Dr. Bean, but I agree that it is just a beautiful, very simplistic representation of the river. I do have the comments pulled up, and I do know the, wisps of snow. I think Minnesota really is a place where the weather in the winter doesn't stop us. And I think it's kind of a beautiful representation of how we take that all, and we're very hardy here, and we enjoy ourselves in all 4 seasons. So I'm putting a little bit of my tourism marketing hat on. But I do think it is just, it's so simple and just kind of eye-catching, and that was one of the reasons I chose it.
Secretary of State? Yeah.
I mean, we could all go down several roads or detours. I'll pick one, which is that the idea of the wavy line, the bottom row, first on the left and middle one have that feature. And I think some other ones, but no, not over there, I guess. And, you know, the so-called North Star flag, which is the second one, the middle one on the bottom row, has been around for 30 years or so. I, in the first round, selected it for discussion purposes because there's something about that wavy line that's good, although I like the one on the left better because it's not so many waves. I just think you know, the idea of one or two, and then the idea of the North Star and the one on the far left, I like too, rather than just the conventional star. But I don't know where everyone else is. This is all a matter of personal taste on the wave issue. I'm not saying that has to be our flag, but I think it's interesting that that's made it into the mix in a lot of different designs. But I like fewer waves rather than many, I guess.
Mr. Freiberg.
Thank you, Chair Fitch. I was just wondering if it would be okay to read, at least just for the benefit of the people at home, the descriptions from the spreadsheet. So I just pulled the ones for the top two.
Thank you.
Choices. So 940 F944, the one with the waves that we've been discussing that's up on the screen right now. The artist called it Mirror of the Sky, listed as unique, essential, enduring, and bold. And then it says, this design pays tribute to Minnesota's diverse and dynamic landscape with wisps of snow, clouds, and aurora reflected by pristine bending waters, and a guiding four-pointed North Star inspired by the symbols and astronomy of Dakota and Ojibwe tribes. The second one is with the multi-pointed star and the sloping green with the blue background. That's up on the screen now. It's F672. The description on the spreadsheet says, from the boundary waters to the mighty Mississippi River to the north shore of Lake Superior, Minnesota is known for its abundant water, the land of 10,000 lakes. The state was named for the region the Dakota called Minnesota, or Minnesota, which translates loosely as the land where waters are so clear they reflect the skies. My flag design is inspired by the Dakota name, with a sky blue field over a deeper blue representing the state's waters. The North Star in the sky, L'Étoile du Nord, is reflected in the water, as is the state's fertile land on the left side of the flag. The 8-pointed star is a traditional symbol of balance and harmony, reminding us that all things and all people are connected. So we all have our own interpretation too. I just thought it was important to highlight the interpretations of the people who designed these.
Most definitely. I think we should talk about the other ones too, and that way I think we need to understand what the person who created these, what they had more time to look at it and research than us. And I just want to mention something about I didn't vote for the first one, and I thought it was too modern, and I want to talk about modern versus traditional just for a minute here. There's nothing wrong with modern, but I always thought that a flag should look like a traditional flag, whatever that is. And very easily I can change my mind on this because we don't have to be traditional anymore on anything that represents us. So when I moved from Mexico to Minnesota, in school we had to learn about the Mississippi River. So coming here, I knew about the Mississippi River. And to me, as a designer, I don't think there's a bigger icon than the Mississippi River. It's born here and it continues to grow here, and then it forms at the end of a delta, at the end of it's the biggest river that we have. And it's one of the few ones, and it's interesting that not too many people submitted the Mississippi River as an icon. There's a lot of lakes, there's a lot of horizons representing water, but not actually the Mississippi River. So it's growing on me, but doesn't mean anything. Sorry, go ahead.
Chair Fitch, I was really drawn to both these top two designs. And it kind of pains me to say this, But with the first one, I do have a question about whether it stands the test of time. I mean, it is very compelling in 2023. I don't want to pass judgment. I just want to raise the issue. And I'll be very candid. The second design there, I found incredibly compelling. But just sitting here and the boards were what, 25 feet away, that second design kind of got lost. And when you pulled it up on the screen, it's like, oh, there it is. Or even when you pulled it closer. But I was reminded of the design principles that were shared with us by experts. And I was sad that it didn't hold up even at this distance. But from my perspective, it didn't. So I felt like I just needed to say that.
Yes, they're printing with color tones from the printer here. Nothing is manipulated or anything. So yes, it looks kind of flat. You can see in the screens there's more contrast. If we get to choose one of these as top 5, we'll go to that table over there and we get really, really choosy with the actual colors. And I bet you they will stand out more. Yeah. So yes.
Sorry, I'm not used to these. One quick thing I just thought I should mention that I might be able to contribute. So I mentioned before I have red-green color blindness, but at least on that one, from a distance, now that you said that, I'm looking at the smaller version of it on the board there, and the darker green and the reflection on the bottom is hard for me to distinguish somewhat from the blue.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we could certainly tweak the color a bit, but and I don't know if it's that way for everybody or just for me, but I thought it was probably worth mentioning that contrast is not, there's not much contrast there, at least as I see it, which is not the way everybody sees it.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't vote for either one of those. Although I like the description for the first one. I don't necessarily, on the second one, the description, I don't know. I don't think that their design meets their description of what they're trying to convey. I think it's very flat. It's very, it's hard for me I'm not colorblind, but to see how that's going to function. I've seen other designs where they've done, well, that one's very obvious. The next one down, where they've done that kind of wavy look. Or on other designs where, I don't know if people noticed, but towards the bottom, they tried to do a reflection where it was kind of wavy. It wasn't up in the main design. It wasn't half of the page. It was, or half of the flag. It was just down a little bit more. It's hard to tell. I will say about the 4-pointed star, the gold one, that was used in another design that I voted for. That is probably on this one and that other one are probably the only ones that I would go for a yellow or a gold star. I like that. Otherwise, I really think that the gold stars need to be changed to white or silver.
And yes.
I just wanted to point out that Representative Freiberg is not the only person. It's a significant portion of Americans. About 8% of males in the United States are colorblind, and I wouldn't be doing my father any services by not mentioning that as well. Because looking at that flag on the top right, even myself not being colorblind and as far away as I am, I'm having a hard time distinguishing the difference in the greens. Have that blowing in the wind on a flagpole, and that's going to be a problem for a lot of individuals. But then you go with the other one, and I was wondering why I didn't really like it. And then the chair said it's modern, and I think that's absolutely what it is. And I think we took a painstaking amount of time amending out every word in our guidelines that referred to modern, and we replaced it with enduring. And I think that's perfectly placed. It's very 2023. It looks beautiful. I love it. But will I love it when I'm 100 years old, hopefully? And will I still think it's modern 100 years from now? Then I'd be like 133, which probably wouldn't happen.
And I think that's what's going to make it very difficult for us, because what's trendy and what's not, and what makes a flag look like a flag that is going to work for us now, that we're different than any other states or nations. And on top of that, it's going to work for the next generations. And so, yes. And about color blindness, there was an article that we passed around, and definitely once we get closer to the end, we are going to put it through to the test on colorblind and what.
Excuse
Yes,
me,
yes,
I just
Olivia.
wanted to present to the chair and as an option, Jack and I have a flag waving simulator website. And so if we further narrow down,
Yeah, you're genius. Yes, please.
so if we further narrow down,
Well, should we wait for the final later or continue this conversation? You want to see it?
okay,
Of course.
give me just
Okay.
1 second.
Okay. Thank you, Olivia.
Give me just 1 second. Jack has been pulling them up and I am going to switch HDMI to his. And I think that will be an easy way for us to see these, but I haven't tested, so
Don't
forgive
worry.
me.
In the meantime, I just want to bring something. So I think we should continue with these conversations, right? And go through all of them. And then I think we're going to have to go back and vote again to choose. I don't think we're going to, right? And hopefully we can see what happens again. Does that make sense? Oh, God. Now everybody likes it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Oh
my
my God.
MNHS colleagues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Second version here.
Oh, wow. Technology.
Yeah.
Don't let the awesome have.
Yeah, right.
Distract you from the actual flag.
Yeah.
Don't just look at it and be like, that's amazing.
That looks like.
Could
the
you
sky
also
cam
show
weather
it
change.
without wind so that we see what it's like when it's
I think it wraps nice. Yeah. Reminds me of a barber pole.
Does it change anybody's mind?
Yeah, so
Yes.
I really like the theme of reflection. The 8-pointed star and reflection are kind of in my mind things that are jumping out throughout this whole process, from the 2,300 plus to the however many we had, 200-300 to this. So the 8-pointed star and reflection are kind of recurring themes. Blue. I honestly can't see the green. I think we could remove the green from the sorry, not this one, but the yeah, that one. Yeah, this one that's on the screens now. I think the green could be removed. I think we could increase the size of the stars, maybe play with the colors a little bit, and I think it'd really pop.
I don't know if we have time, but maybe we could take some time either with this or eliminate some further. Could we double check these with other flags around the country? Because I know that there
Like
were
Google-
some. Yeah,
Google image?
yeah, I used some, and they came up as
Yeah.
countries, and they came up as states and
Mhm.
provinces of other places. And the second one, the mirror one, if it wasn't mirrored, I believe that's another country's flag.
Yeah. While we are talking about these other ones, Jack, do you think you could do some Google images research? Thank you, appreciate that. That would be great. That's a good suggestion. So just to make sure that we don't choose something that it's already.
Yeah, on that note, I did notice the third one, the first one in the middle row. It's very similar to the flag of Somalia. We do. Sorry. We do have a big Somali population here, and I did look up the description of that one. It sounds like it was probably unintentional on the part of the person who designed that one. But basically, that flag is a white star on a light blue background. So, we I certainly have no issue with that particular flag, but I don't know that we want one.
There were some that were
so
submitted.
closely represents.
There were some that
resembles another
were submitted that were just copies of flag officers' flags. So for the armed forces, they each get a flag with 1 or 4 stars on them, and some of those that were in the mix were just taken from that.
Yeah, I particularly know this designer. I know he didn't copy anything. He came to this conclusion, I'm sure. And yes, now that you say that it looks like a Somali flag, obviously half of it does look like a Somali flag. Again, nothing wrong with that. But it's these are the conversations we need to have. Anybody else who voted for this one? Talk more about this one? No? Yes, please.
I just wanted to go back to the first one for a minute. And the lower where the river is, the water is, how would people feel about where the lines through the blue were green? I know we're going towards, more colors, but green to represent agriculture in Minnesota.
If we do that literally, well, no. I'm looking at if that's the river, do land goes in? And of course it does, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Could you turn the dark blue streaks in the white to the lighter blue then if you for that mirroring?
So the 2 lines in the bottom, green, and the 2 lines on the top on the sky, light blue.
Yeah.
Oh,
I guess it's one of those things that we need to see, right?
Still modern, but
So yeah, it's doable. It's definitely doable. If it becomes one of the top 5, we can explore that.
yeah, just an idea.
Yes, definitely. No more comments on this one? Yes, please.
Or even the bottom right corner, making it green in the bottom right corner, maybe.
Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
So on the first one, in the
Mhm.
bottom right corner, maybe putting a block of green there as well.
Bring the green, introduce green in that corner. Yeah.
Correct.
Should we jump to the second row with the 4? Thank you. Anybody wants to talk about this one?
I have to say,
Mhm.
this is my favorite. It was my favorite in the first round. It's my favorite in this round. I think it's simple. I think it's unique. I think it says a whole lot of stuff. I know that I was able to hear a description of a white feather that I'd never heard before, just like some folks had never heard or don't see loons on a regular basis. I'd never heard of this description of a white feather. So I think it's a powerful symbol. And yeah, I think it's a beautiful flag.
Yes, please.
So that's where we would have to disagree on this one. Where I'm sitting, I can't tell from that small one what any of those things are. I would be guessing if it was a star in the top left corner. And then whatever's green, I don't know what it is. Wheat is definitely not one of the top crops that the state of Minnesota grows. Corn, soybeans, mostly the largest ones. Sugar beets are on there, hogs. But wheat is no longer one of our top. And then in my mind, when I see a white feather, now I have a master's in history, I see cowardice. In World War I, there was a campaign to shame men into service by walking around and seeing anyone not wearing a uniform, they would hand them a white feather. And so that was to shame the man into serving his country. So when I see a white feather, I don't see, because I read the description as well, but I don't see honesty or a wisdom. I don't see indigenous native populations. I see cowardice.
Please.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier, and the the white feather just is not a symbol, again, it's not a state symbol, not an official state symbol. Wheat isn't either. Wheat is not the official crop of the state of Minnesota. It's wild rice. That's in statute. The only one would be the pine, if that's supposed to represent red pine, but it doesn't look like red pine to me. When we picked it apart earlier this morning, that's why I had voted for this one, and then I really looked and then read the description again. It's just, they're not state symbols. So I don't think that they're appropriate. Just like I don't think the snowflake on the last flag there that people voted for, I don't think that's appropriate either. I really got annoyed with all the snow, way too many snow references. I think it was cartoony and funny when North Dakota TV news was reporting on it, but I didn't think it was serious for a state flag in Minnesota.
If we, it seems to be one of the favorites so far. If we make those changes that you suggested, would it be better for all?
I don't know how you would change it.
Like if you change the wheat to wild rice, for
Exactly,
instance,
that's
just
one.
a,
Yeah, and then,
White feather to brown feather?
or to a loon feather, or to, I mean, I can, yes, please.
I think I'll just mention, I don't know how many folks here have ever plucked or worked much with eagles. A lot of those feathers are white. And that does have a lot of symbolism for us as Indigenous people. A lot of those eagle feathers are white, and that's what I read into that. And I think that that's a symbol of strength and power and beauty. I agree in terms of the wheat. I think something like wild rice, or, you know, I do like the idea of more like indigenous corn, older corn, but it's not going to necessarily look the same. But I also really think that wild rice is something that should be incorporated in here if you're going to incorporate plants. Cedar is also an option as well, as that's a medicine that is widely available across the state. I know we'd had conversations with other commissioners about sweetgrass. And so I think thinking if this was to make to the top 5, there's a lot of conversation of what those 3 symbols would be.
Yes, please.
You know, wild rice has been the official state crop since 1977. When Congressman Peterson was still in the state Senate, he introduced it. He represented the 7th Congressional District for many years, and was chairman of the Agriculture Committee. But that was added to state statute in 1977, Chapter 1, Section 148. The white feather, I mean, I understand the importance of the eagle feather if we're going to look for a national symbol to put in. I don't know if it really looks like one, if people would notice it. And then my other question is that red pine that's on the other side? Because red pine would be, just double checking here.
I mean, we could say it is or make it look more like it.
And we
What is
can make it. So it is. Can we make this one fly? Because I have a feeling that this would not be that good, making it fly. Because it's surrounded by blue. There's no lines, there's no, yes.
From the morning discussion, one idea is, can we change maybe change the appearance of keep the white feather, but maybe make the end of it look more like a quill, something you would write as an instrument.
Yeah, you're the second person that's mentioned that. What about the, yeah, whenever you.
I do want to mention, because this was submitted in the style of an already waving flag,
Yes.
we're going to do our best, but
No, you're right. We can start talking about the third one there. that to me is one of the boldest of all of them, the one that is in your face. There's no mistake. It's like, it's there, you know? Yeah. Almost half of us voted for this. I mean, it's not, I like, because it's easy to draw. Let's start with that. It's only 2 colors without counting the white, obviously. It does feel like a traditional flag, but at the same time, it feels modern, contemporary, but not trendy. And I think that's something that it's important. Now, at the same time, as soon as I say this, everybody's going to, it looks like a logo of a corporation or a symbol, right? So we got to take that out of our mind too and say, well, anybody else?
We do have.
It really looks just like the contemporary image of a Polaris star over the 8-point star, where it's all blue. I like it, but I would probably change the tint of the colors to be a little bit darker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't.
More serious?
Yeah.
Let's pop. Oh.
Yeah.
Jack and Olivia. Yeah. Are we ready? Thank you. Yes.
As mentioned, this flag was submitted with an effect already on it, and so we have kind of cropped it. There are some slight colors on the edges there.
Yeah, just imagine that part is still dark blue. Can you make it relax? And I think that's where I don't think it's as powerful as the other 2. You still see the star?
Just a quick question. Did anyone else, because I think it only got 2 votes, but the obvious other flag that was designed by this designer, do we maybe want to reconsider that one? If people want to look at that?
I can't remember it.
It has this, has the bars on the sides and then the star in the middle.
Is it up?
No, it's not up there.
Huh? No, it's not up?
No, it's
No.
not up there.
Oh.
I think it only got 1, it might not even got 1 vote on this other round.
It wasn't in this round? Did it got 1 vote? Do you know? This one?
Aaron?
No, it's 77. Yeah. There's
we're talking, this one was the same person who did the second one or the third one? The wheat, okay, gotcha. Yeah, to me, they're extremely different. Even if it was done by the same person, I don't think it's worth talking about it at this. I mean, if it didn't make it to this phase, other than anybody has a different opinion, it really doesn't. There's no similarities.
I just have a question to the commission. How in the statement, we had asked what is the connection to Minnesota? And with a couple of the flag designs, fully appreciate the transparency and honesty, but a couple of the flags, designers mentioned that they didn't have any connection to Minnesota. And the one that is a favorite with the wheat feather That is one of the flags. So it's more of a question of, is that to help us decide?
Was he out of state, or there was, I remember someone from Europe, and I don't know which one it was.
I really have to object to that being a criteria, because I proposed at the beginning that no one outside of the state of Minnesota designs the flag. And this commission decided that we would take them from everyone. So to use that criteria now is just rewriting the rules.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely not fair to the people who participated and to the rules that were established.
Yeah, and for what I remember, the reason we said that is because imagine if you were born here.
Right. You have to have a.
And then I went to LA and live over there. And I'm planning to come back or whatever it is, but your family and everybody's from here. We said that they have the right to design it. So that was.
I thought that they needed a connection to Minnesota. I thought that was the conclusion that we came to, whether they lived here or not. Didn't matter.
Yeah, that's what I remember too. Yeah. Now, we can. Is the second one you're saying that this person, there's no connection?
This
at all?
one says, unfortunately, I have no direct connection to Minnesota.
Well, then, let's consider that. I mean, we're gonna have to vote.
Yeah.
So consider that. You don't have to, yes, Secretary.
I just had a question on not the one that's waving now, but the one to its right that we were talking about before. Is there an artist description on that one?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
Please, thank you.
Sure, yeah, so F1154, it's the green on top, blue on bottom, yes, that one. It says, the artist's description said, bold, simple, proprietary, and rich with symbolism. This 8-pointed motif contains a hidden North Star in the center. The 8-pointed star immediately brings to mind a snowflake, which reflects our climate and cultural resiliency. 8-pointed stars are also found in Ojibwe and Sioux star blankets, Nordic fair isle patterns, agrarian barn quilts, and the Capitol Rotunda itself. The blue and green background represent a lake and wooded shoreline of the boundary waters, symbols of Minnesota's natural resources. The starflake symbol is easy to reproduce and is a unique proprietary symbol, contains a depth of meaning to Minnesota.
Thank you.
And just as a teachable moment here, I think mentioning that Sioux isn't a word that we call ourselves, we say Dakota. But I just want to make sure to put that out there so that we all have that understanding.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought of that as I was reading it, but I wanted to read it as it was written.
Thank you. Any other comments on this one? Please.
So
Yes, can we go back to the one that is up in the screen? Yes, Denise.
So after listening, reading that, it doesn't feel inclusive to me. And I think that's what this is all about. I think we need to be really inclusive of whatever we pick, but it doesn't seem very inclusive to me. And I think that's really important.
How flexible we're going to be when, like when I see that, I don't see multiculturalism. I don't see, right? But then when you read it, that person said, it represents this and this and this. And because a lot of people they didn't understand, I think, the rules. And a lot of people just mention.
So can I say, so when I read it now, from what I'm reading, they talk about Ojibwe and Sioux. I understand that in Nordic fair island patterns. It doesn't speak of, anyone else. And trust me, we have way more than that in the state.
Right here.
And it all needs to be, exactly.
Right here.
It needs to be represented.
No, I get it. So consider that again on second round. Yes.
The only thing I would say, and you asked the right question, Mr. Chair, is would we feel the same way had we never heard a description? In other words, that's kind of why I asked the question.
Yes.
I know not all of them have that, but when I look at like the snowflake and the North Star and the fact, as you said, that it's quite bold, I didn't vote for it, but it's growing on me. For reasons that have nothing to do with culture. It's just there's a North Star, 8-pointed star, snowflake, blue, green. I like it for that reason, but I hadn't even thought of those other things until I heard the description, which was a little off to me. But should we care what the artist says if we're going to write a report on January 1st, and we can say, I'm just using this as an example, I'm not saying we choose this one, but we could say, we're choosing flag number XYZ because it represents a snowflake, and we don't have to say anything about what the author said. So
are we
I
okay with
guess
that?
I'm saying,
Yeah.
if we like the design, we can always describe it in our own way. That has nothing to do with what the artist was thinking.
The way we saw it for the first time
Yeah,
without the
exactly.
description.
I'm not saying it has to be
Yeah.
this flag. I'm just saying generally speaking.
No, I agree. I thought of this from day one because a lot of them went with the multiculturalists, and right there was a big no-no, right? Focusing on just a few. And so I knew that was going to be a problem, but I didn't see it. It's when I was reading it that became the problem. So I don't know how open-minded we want to be about the descriptions. I think it's good to understand what they were trying to do. Yes, Dr. B.
I was just reading the description and this person says that they're a resident of Minnesota. I do find it interesting. They say that they always visit the deep fried pickle stand at the state fair. So I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah.
Could you take the wind away from this one, please?
The one thing about the modifications and the fact that we will modify them too, we did discuss that we're going to have to come up with our own what this
Verbiage.
symbolizes, because it was back to when Mr. K was speaking to us, is that what does it mean to you? It's back to my reference a long time ago is, what's art? I mean, everyone's got a different interpretation of it, and it's really hard to, when you have, of course, green, we talk about the greenery of Minnesota, or the blue, we talk about the waters or the sky, or actually, I was mentioning this morning, but actually white is really the symbol of water everywhere outside of the United States. When you incorporate it into a flag or incorporate it into a coat of arms, white is, or silver is the symbol of water. But yeah, I think we have to, some of these descriptions, like I said, that second one, I don't think it matches that at all. I like what they said, but I don't think they carried through in what they made a design. So I think we have to be comfortable with changing some of those.
I like what you're saying. I think it seems fair if we are allowed to change color and design elements, why not the meaning of what they're saying and create our own story? Holistically, obviously, that we all agree. So when it goes out, it represents that, not what the artist meant to, right, necessarily. So if we're all open-minded about that, then we can continue with this. How do you guys feel when it's relaxed? Yeah, it is no so. Yes, please.
Not to be difficult or anything.
You haven't.
After all this conversation that we're having, I personally would like to go back and look at other things as well, because maybe we can interpret them, differently, or just think about some of these things and put a little bit more thought into them. It's just my thought.
Does anybody else feel?
Wish.
Yeah, and there's these. They got one, yeah. You're more than welcome to go through them. I'm gonna pass those. Okay. Does anybody feel the necessity to go back? No? Yes. Mhm. Yes. Yeah, we got 35 minutes for a dinner break.
Oh,
Yes. Can we continue? I mean, I don't want to make this process fast, but just If we can go to some of the descriptions, would be great too, because I think that's very helpful. And then we can have open to conversations. I'm gonna talk about the last one on the second row. They got 4 stickers. Here's another one that I think it feels like a flag. It feels traditional, but pushing a little bit more to contemporary, but it doesn't feel trendy. And that's just my perception. It has 1, 2, 3, 4 colors plus the white. And the white doesn't count in printing, but it counts in meaning. Sorry, yeah, it's, no, don't worry. Yeah, I wish the numbers were bigger. Thank you. Yeah, and this person had a lot of meaning on each thing. One 587.
With this one, the hard part for me is, I think white anywhere on the flag is sometimes hard to pull off. And when you have just one edge or wedge like that, I think what I think would make this look nicer is if that the water blue would be replace the white. So that no edge of the flag. There was another flag where they had put a bar at white at the end, but you couldn't tell that it was a white bar at the end. You could only see the first 2.
So it's a problem when in print, and we're going to see the flags in print a lot. You can see it now without that gray border. It just disappears. It falls. And so one idea will be, well, if blue means water, why not the blue be in the bottom? The star can be white, and then you're now surrounded by color. But, so consider that, moving the colors around. What, how do you guys feel about this, the star, 8-point star? Surrounded by all this blue space.
I have a question just about the orientation of an 8-point star.
Yes.
Is there a correct positioning of that? Because this is obviously different than the one we looked at immediately prior to this one.
It would stand on 2 legs in the correct position. This is done at a diagonal. Or no, it's not done at a diagonal. It's the correct way. Sorry. You can add another one.
This is correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, there is, it's constructed a little bit different if you compare it to the one next to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know which one is more the correct way. If we're basing it based on.
And that was my question.
Yes, I got you. Yeah.
So
it does feel a little bit different than the majority of what other people have designed and done. But design wise, again, it looks, it feels a little bit complex, but it's very simple. There's a couple of just, they divided the flag in half, and that's where the points end. And then they divide it horizontally, and that's where the main triangle ends. So it's constructed extremely simple, believe it or not. And then the 2 triangles coming from the bottom hits again right on the middle. It is like simple, can't go simple than that. Yes, I do have a description. You want me to read it? As stated in both your brief and between the general practice of visual communication, simplicity is key to effectiveness. Leaning towards the abstract composition allows for more future-proof representation of the idea. And although I work to minimize the amount of elements in the composition, each element carries a lot of weight and meaning. The North Star is an ownable and revered symbol to our state, and I imagined that will exist in many of the submissions. The rendering and the specific design is inspired by the people of both the Dakota and the Anishinaabe tribes. The large triangular shape at the center of the layout symbolized forward momentum for the state. It also referenced coverage of both ideas and physical space. Spaces like the Bate, the joining of the Minnesota and Mississippi rivers, the colors chosen have a direct recognizable connection to the landscape of the state. This person moved to Minnesota over 20 years ago. Any more questions about this one? Now we can move. Yes, please.
Yes.
I would just say that the star, whether it's Dakota or something, this one's the most kind of awkward 8-pointed star. I think that it looks wider at the bottom than it is on the sides, and the way it's kind of angled seems the most awkward to me, regardless of nods to different cultures or communities. This one seems awkward.
Yeah, you can compare it to the one that we just talked about, the white one, the star, the 8 points. And to me, seems that proportionate, it's better the one on the left. That one. That's visually, I think that makes sense because it's constructed by 4 squares and one in the middle. The other one, I don't think it's a perfect square. It's a rectangular. That's the way it looks strange to us.
It could be fixed.
Anything can be fixed.
But the
yes.
you know, besides it being a Dakota symbol, that star, it is also a state symbol, and it is a symbol of the state capitol in the rotunda by Cass Gilbert. So the 8-point star has various meanings, all that I think are good and appropriate for use on the flags.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my only comment, I guess I agree about the orientation of the star. You know, there are 5 colors on it, which seems like a lot for a flag. I know you said it was actually fairly simple, but that aspect of it, I don't know that I would describe as simple. I think the other one with the green on top and blue on bottom and the 8-pointed star, I think that to me comes a little closer to that criterion. I guess I would, you mean using these shapes, but only 3 colors? I guess I would have to see how it would work. I mean, I don't think we should have some arbitrary limit on number of colors or anything. I do think there could be a design that incorporates 5 colors effectively. I don't know. I'm just not sure how I feel about that, this one specifically.
I think it'd be interesting to see that previous star on this one.
Yes, definitely that can be an option. Yes.
And I hate to be dense, but I'm not sure I was clear on the orientation flag of the 8-point star. So are we saying that it should be at the angle that the one in front of us is right now? Or should it be, is there a correct positioning?
It's the correct positioning, but Luis is right. It's two.
Yeah.
If you took away the cutouts, it would be 2 rectangles over each other instead of 2 squares. And it should be 2 squares.
Sorry to interrupt, but the reason I ask is if we're looking at the previous one and you turned that star slightly, the symmetry of the design starts to be in question perhaps.
Yeah, we were looking through that earlier. There was a design like that. It might also be maybe a little bit of illusion of having yellow somewhere else in the flag of how you look at it. Because it just seems like everything's, it seems like it's uneven for some reason.
I have a quick suggestion. I really like the star up in the left